edition of the Washington County Committee for Community Involvement. My name is Bruce Bartlett. I am the chair of this group. Mary Manso is the vice chair, and Virginia is everything in between, including our tech wizard. I'd like to thank Aka Falstrom for being the Washington County staff support. And see Gretchen Boehner and Jim Long are on here. They are members of the steering committee. Steering committee meets tomorrow at 11 o'clock over Zoom. We have a special edition of the CCI meeting tonight, focusing on the county's significant natural resource effort. And I'm assuming that, Jim, you want to take the lead and run through the agenda. Is that a good assumption?
Yes.
Okay. Well, then, without any further ado, here is the most significant things going on with these significant natural resources. Jim Long, the chair of the committee. Thanks for being here.
Sure. I guess the first bit of perspective here would be that I've had people suggest that we postpone while the Democratic National Convention's on, because there have been some good speeches. Okay, so there was an agenda, and I've got a lot of things put together. The first thing we need to do is a history of significant natural resources, what's happened here. And we have talked about putting together a detailed case study on our appeals and the results of them for years, but I haven't done it. So I've tried today to put together some background history from 2007 to 223 or 2024. With the land use laws starting in the early 70s, our forefathers and foremothers were smart enough to protect significant natural resources and historical and cultural sites. There was an inventory done, and from what I heard today from Fran, who unfortunately can't be with us tonight, it was the property owners who put in that there were significant natural resource areas on their property. They were the ones who declared that. And in the appeals we've gone through, there was a time, maybe 2016, 2017, where I remember being in front of a hearings officer in Hillsborough at the county hearings officer place, and there was a representative from the Department of Land Use and Transportation who said that some of their maps were done in crayon. Some of their S&R maps were done in crayon. So it wasn't very highly sophisticated at that point. This was 40 years ago. So anyway, that's that. The next year or so, CPO4M and Pat Forsyth and Jill Warren had an appeal related to the Cedar Crest properties. And at one of our members, Mary Elizabeth McAndrew, she collected over 100 letters that were submitted to the Department of Land Use and Transportation with concerns about the application that was in front of them. As things progressed in 2017, the Oregon legislature with Senate Bill 1051, which dealt with needed housing or middle housing, and it also included a statement that the county needed to follow clear and objective codes, clear and objective standards. So that's how the concept of clear and objective came into play. There were some appeals, we won some remands, and in 2020, there was Ordinance 869 and 869A, which had a lot of contentious public hearings. And let me pull up some information about that. I've got some more specifics, so I'm not just talking off the top of my head. Um, so, as you know, the land use rules require local governments to adopt programs to protect wildlife areas and other biologically important natural resources when they're within the respective jurisdictions. The LCDC, Land Conservation Development Commission, issued its enforcement order after much of the county's existing Goal 5 program was invalidated by the Oregon Court of Appeals in 2019. Under LCDC's enforcement order, the county was required to adopt new Goal 5 rules for significant natural resources to replace those invalidated by the courts of appeals. The enforcement order also halted development applications for areas designated as wildlife habitat under the county's Goal 5 program until the new rules could be adopted. However, instead of protecting significant natural resources, the county's newly adopted rules loosened protections and allows developers to destroy 75 to 85% of the previously protected natural resources. CPO4M and numerous other community organizations and individuals testified against the adoption of the new rules, insisting that greater protections for these irreplaceable natural resources be enacted instead. The Board of Commissioners, however, ignored those pleas and rushed through a flawed new ordinance in an apparent attempt to lift the LCDC injunction on new development and designated wildlife habitat. CPO4M appealed the adoption of 869A to the Land Use Board of Appeals, arguing that the new rules did not comply with Goal 5 or the county's own comprehensive plan policies for the protection of designated significant natural resources. LUBA agreed, and on September 29, 2021, issued an order and opinion remanding the matter back to the county to make changes to the new rules so that they comply with Goal 5. We're still assessing the full legal effects of the LUBA ruling, but Ordinance 869A is now unenforceable and it is amended to comply until it is amended to comply with the order. As a practical matter, this will affect any pending land use applications for development and designated significant natural resources. I'm trying to bring up some more testimony. I put together some more documentation. Where did it go? Following a series of legal defeats, Washington County is once again faced with the task of implementing these new rules. The rewrite was the result of a multi-year legal battle. The commission found that Washington County's land use program did not comply with state law. Community participation organization 4M appealed the adoption of the new ordinance to Land Use Board of Appeals. 4M also appealed the subsequent adoption of wildlife habitat assessment guidelines, which provided technical requirements that would allow developers to alter the boundaries of the previously designated protected areas using, quote, field verification, unquote. So how the county intends to address these setbacks has become clear as they've come out with their new ordinances 901 and 902. Now there have been at the original application that started this was at 82nd Cedar Crest in the Metzger area, unincorporated Washington County. And there behind Pat Forsyth's house was a great big wetland area where Ash Creek runs through, and there was an underground stream. So she's no longer with us, but she was a wildlife journalist. She wrote many stories and articles about things, and she was very helpful in drawing attention to the fact that something needed to happen there. So that's what started the process. And since then, we've continued to follow it through and found that the county just wasn't in compliance. Um, Now, is Joanne here? Is Joanne Delmonico here on the call? She
Yes,
was going to,
she is in the attendees.
well, she could talk about the Leahy Road appeal, which um,
Yeah,
resulted. Is, hello, Joanne?
I'm here.
Okay, why don't you talk about the Leahy Road appeal?
So in May of 2022, I filed an appeal with LUT for an approved development on an SNR area called Estates at Leahy Park, which was, yeah, the acreage, it's not coming to me right now, but anyhow, it was for, um, an area that was quite, a perennial stream, had a riparian area and upland habitat and 3 wetlands. And they were coming in and a developer coming in and developing it, wanting 15 large $1 million homes built. So anyway, I filed an appeal. The LUT denied the appeal, and then it was appealed to LUBA. And the LUBA appeal was also denied, but the land use attorney, Ken Dobson, who was representing me, found through this development appeal that the new ordinance 869A was still not providing clear and objective standards. So I think, from what he said, that's why he in February, or at the late, in 2022, he filed an appeal with the LCDC, representing Jill Warren, in a hearing regarding their continued lack of compliance with statewide Goal 5. And at the conclusion of that hearing, now we've got the remand on the ordinance 869A and the new ordinance 901 and 902 are being, are presented now and going to, be heard by the planning commissioners and by the extension to have this or these ordinances in place. The new ordinances is October 1st of 2024. So it's coming up, and we've done a lot of testimony and will continue to, because we don't feel, I speak for the subgroup SNR group, that we don't feel that the 901 and 902 are adequate. So that is where we are.
Okay, thank you, Joanne. The enforcement order resulted in these proposed ordinances, and there are many pages in length, and the county had organized a technical advisory committee of 15 to 20 people, and they did not necessarily get to provide much input, but they listened to everything, from what I understand. And what we have now are a variety of products. One of the products that came out of the work, and indeed it cost, from what I understand, about $250,000 to do this review for clear and objective standards. And to put it in perspective, Oregon or Washington County is the first county to have to deal with this. It's going to affect all 35 counties, because it affect all cities in the state as far as their urban growth boundary and their well, particularly their clear and objective standards regarding significant natural resource areas, not their urban growth boundary. I'm sorry, that was a miss bunch of words. So the SNR committee drafted a letter, and it was all put together last month, and the county had come out with a statement saying that the county board of commissioners need to review and recognize and approve any comments by the CPO. So I submitted it to them, and apparently the day after our last CCI meeting, Bruce went to the county administrative office and talked to them about it, and they said, it's okay, go ahead and submit it. So I submitted it to the Planning Commission at their last meeting. And at their last meeting, there was lots of testimony. It went for quite a while. And one of the things that was surprising was there were 2 or 3 of the testifiers who were threatening lawsuits or appeals if the county did approve something because they might lose some of their investment in real estate. Investments are investments and they're not guaranteed. So that's where that statement is. The letter that we submitted is the letter in front of you tonight. It's been modified a bit from what was submitted to the Planning Commission. The letter we submitted to the Planning Commission had all 7 members of who were present at the SNR subcommittee that were signing it to add more mustard to it. And so how many of you have read the letter? Jill has. Okay, Joanne has. Mary Lou has. Okay, they're all members of our subcommittee. Mary has. So the letter, it was in your packet. It was in smaller typeface than I used for the commissioners. For other people, it's easier to read it. It has bigger typeface and is formatted better. How that is our action item for today. And we can discuss it. We can go through it paragraph by paragraph. How would you like to approach this letter and action item?
Well, that's a good question. I think that I'm curious, of the attendees, could you hit the raise hand button if you have read the letter or at least looked through it a little bit? You attendees. We got one. Okay, well, yeah, there's all the CCI members. So, with Sophia, good. Well, there's a few. Um, I think, Jim, it would be helpful if you went through maybe section by section more than paragraph by paragraph, just to kind of give a feel for the kinds of things that the letter comments on. Does that seem doable?
I had, because it's a 7-page letter, I needed to summarize it for the Planning Commission. You know, even though we were granted some extra time, I needed to summarize the letter. So let me open that file that I did to prep that summary and see if it's available for us to. I found it. Okay. So this letter was addressed to the Washington County Board of Commissioners, Washington County Planning Commissioners in Hillsborough, dear Washington County boards. This letter is a draft not yet approved by the full CCI, which will be focused on proposed ordinances 901 and 902 on August 20th, the night before your next hearing. So that's tonight. So we encourage you to hold another hearing, a continuation of this hearing, as we perceive more issues with the ordinances. Do I have time to read the entire 7 pages? And they said, no, summarize it. So We oppose ordinance 901 and 902 as currently written. That in question. Feedback from the CCI subcommittee and other Washington County members. The current proposals fail to strike a balance between housing production and the need to protect remaining natural resources, including trees and wildlife habitat. Upland habitat is up for this paragraph. Consolidating, quote, upland habitat, end quote, classifications obscure critical distinctions between different types of upland habitats, each of which may have unique ecological values and conservation needs. And I'm going to interrupt it right now. Fran has told us that she got a response from the county, and the county says they don't have time to respond to this letter. It's 7 pages. We raise a bunch of questions looking for more information, but apparently the county says they don't have time to respond to the letter. So if we're just spinning our wheels, I'm not sure at this point. Okay, so their definition of upland habitat is questionable. On mitigation, we want to see local mitigation. All tree replacement shall occur on site and in verified riparian wildlife habitat boundary, except where replacement is pursuant to 8422-8.3. They need a clear method of updating monetary charges to reflect mitigation values and establish that ensure that the funds are adequate for environmental restoration thereafter. Tree canopy is well known to play a key role in climate change mitigation by preventing urban heat islands, improving air and water quality, and enhancing stormwater management. Mandatory maximums must be included to preserve these essential ecosystem services. And then under monitoring enforcement, duration. Recent studies have demonstrated that due to increasing climate challenges, supplemental watering and maintenance for new plantings must extend beyond the current 2-year requirement. Lack of resources. The county currently lacks sufficient resources to effectively monitor and enforce all county policies. As a result, LUT relies heavily on community members to report code violations. This enforcement model is dependent on the public's ability to recognize infractions, leaving gaps in effective oversight as well as responsiveness. Number 3, transparency. Community members have repeatedly requested and been denied detailed information on mitigation efforts that have been undertaken, including specific actions, dates, locations, and monetary charges. We recommend Washington County provide details regarding monetary mitigation activities assigned and or implemented within the last 5 years for the purpose of calculating ecological impacts as a result of SNR and tree loss. This will provide credible data for planning improvements. Next item is tree valuation points. Incorporating, and this is part of a tree code of sorts to perhaps provide an incentive. Incorporating numerical specifics are beneficial for clarity and objectivity. However, the specific values assigned and the tree species identified remain unknown with no scientific evidence cited. Engaging an objective expert to explain underlying algorithms would deter ongoing challenges to these values by the community as well as developers. This transparency will enhance the credibility and trust in the valuation process, ensuring that stakeholders understand and support the methods used. Cumulative effects. The current policies fail to consider the total burden of development projects impacting significant natural resources. Oak trees. Oaks are slow-growing, sturdy trees known to be drought and disease resistant and suited to survive in the Willamette Valley. They are native trees. These trees, many of which are centuries old in Washington County, play a crucial role in supporting wildlife and enhancing ecological health. Oaks are among the most biologically diverse habitats in the region, providing essential food and habitat for over 300 wildlife species, including many birds and mammals. Recognizing the historical and environmental significance of oak trees in Washington County, we recommend the policy should prioritize the protection of oak trees with limited exceptions. Other trees beyond include the native ponderosa pine, madrone, and others of Pacific willow. Next topic is cities inventory inclusion. We recommend that cities' qualified inventory updates should be included as part of the S&R mapping process. And that's something we will be able to talk about after the letter. The county's put together an interactive mapping system that we'll show some slides of. So again, we recommend that the city's qualified inventory updates be included. In 2017, Senate Bill 1051 amended state statutes to require local governments to only apply clear and objective standards to housing applications. The city of Beaverton has re-inventoried sections of Cooper Mountain, identified local significant natural resources, and mapped them as S&R areas to be protected. And then we talk about the community plan and what it does. Areas outside the UGB. There are significant natural areas outside the urban growth boundary. We realize this ordinance applies only to residential development within the UGB, but the verbiage in this section is currently not clear and objective and must remove this section to comply with criteria dictated by Oregon law. There need to be protections for S&Rs outside the urban growth boundary. The next topic is ESEE analysis. ESEE stands for Economic, Social, Environmental, and Energy. The ESEE draft information does not contain any numerical evidence to support the recommendations. This is notable since 200 trees have recently been removed in the public right-of-way by Washington County due to conflicts with recent infrastructure decisions. All these street trees provided very needed shade to pedestrians and bicyclers, as well as overall cooling effect on the neighborhood. We cite some legal courts of appeal to document some of that. Habitat assessment guidelines were the subject. Wildlife habitat assessment guidelines were the subject of a separate appeal and remand by the state of Oregon in 2020. It is not evident whether they are covered in the proposed ordinance. And we've been asking about this and haven't gotten any response from the county on that. Suggestions. So we have some suggestions. So they're kind of generalized things here that we want to discuss, and maybe we need to draft some codes and numbers and figure out where they would go. In addition to the replanting bond, add a refundable assurance bond to development approvals that holds developers accountable for meeting mitigation requirements up front. Process and procedures to follow up with developers on mitigation activities to ensure success should be established. A policy for the protection of natural hydrology supporting significant natural resources should be added to ensure long-term ecological resilience. Add ODFW Metro's priority wildlife corridors and environmental equity overlays. Tree equity score demographic information to S&R mapping and to ensure that the most critical habitat and historically compromised areas are given higher natural resource protection. Add prioritization of wildlife corridors and connectivity as defined by the State of Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife and Metro to the tree value algorithm designation to provide a more objective protection package. Explore creating incentives that attract the redevelopment of existing commercial buildings. Utilize buildable land outside S&R areas and encourage building upward rather than outward to preserve tree canopy. I'm getting near the end of the letter. We got four more areas to go. Explore opportunities to protect more tree canopy and habitat by restoring and or creating new significant natural resource areas. The planting of any invasive, non-native, or noxious vegetation should be strictly prohibited within SNR areas and or near the replanting area. The policy should state explicitly non-native and invasive vegetation must be removed without the use of herbicides. And lastly, as residential development in Washington County expands towards mountainous areas, specific provisions for the protection of headwaters should be added to Title 13 to preserve the ecological health and biodiversity of local waterways. Areas such as Bethany, Cooper Mountain, and Bull Mountain contain vital underground water resources that feed into streams below. Interference with these headwaters can significantly impact fish and wildlife in these creeks and streams. Thank you for your dedicated efforts. For the SNR committee, Jim Long, Chair, Fran Warren, Jill Warren, Lindsay Zahel, Joanne Delmonico, Mary Lou Oberson, Fawn Hosey, and Isla Hoffler. So that's the letter. Any comments?
Mary, what do you got?
So I'm not hearing a specific request. Are you requesting that the ordinance be rejected? Are you requesting that the ordinances be changed, engrossed? It seems like, yes, you brought up a lot of issues, but you're not making a specific request. And I also have concerns. I know in our CPO, the mapping will actually help protect some of the areas that were overlooked the first time through. And so it's really important for some of these areas to have the mapping adopted to provide that protection, and for that mapping to be adopted as soon as possible.
Yeah, well, as I started at the beginning of the letter, we oppose these ordinances as they're written currently. There is a lot of information here. I don't think our committee is finished its work by any stretch. We need to look at more of the details within the code itself, the proposed ordinance, to be able to suggest some particular changes or additions. A lot of what I read there are generalized theories about what we want and what's not there and what needs to be there. So I do see some need to get more specific, but we have this letter and it's not official. It's not on CCI letterhead. It's not submitted officially to the Planning Commission or the Board of Commissioners until this group approves it or amends it somehow.
Would there be a problem with adoption of both ordinances, with the understanding that the fixes would come about in the next year? As I understand it, there's really a drop dead date of October 1st, but it sounds like the state is actually willing to work with the county, with the understanding that the county is moving forward with solutions. So has the committee talked at all about, the subcommittee talked at all about what you'd like to see done? And how that works with the October 1st deadline?
Well, the October 1st deadline is not a drop dead deadline. I mean, no one's going to drop dead. It's just holding up applications from people who have significant natural resource areas on their property. And we understand that there are people who disagree with the mapping and they say there's not an SNR on their property, and other people who say there is an SNR on their property and they want them identified and protected. So there's lots of little things. I think it would be good to continue the process. I don't know that it's going to be easy to look at having them amend it in the next couple of months afterwards. So we would like to deal with it now. We would like to get the best proposal out there, the best ordinances out there, because we want to be a good model for the other cities and counties around the state. We want to be able to protect the wildlife habitat areas. And currently, there's some people who don't think that it really protects enough trees or wildlife habitat for the future. So if we had more time, we could get to a better place. And I think that's where our committee would like to be. We still have to get into some more details on things. We need to get very specific. I have a letter that I'm going to put together with all the specifics that I have from our discussion that we haven't yet necessarily approved at the subcommittee level. But there are some things, if you want to hear one of them that seems to be getting some positive response, it's to have the real estate deeds where there are significant natural resources areas actually state that on the deed. And I've heard somebody this morning describe it as a remonstrance to help clear up, and this would be clear and objective, to clear up things in the future so there aren't much litigation or liabilities for the county in that sense. So we have some ideas we're developing that aren't quite there, but at this point today, we'd like to get this letter approved so it moves forward.
Jim,
The Planning Commission is meeting tomorrow, and they're also meeting on the 4th of September. And after that, maybe again, and then it's going to go to the commissioners. So we have some more opportunities, and we could bring back another letter next month to this group, to the CCI.
Is there any way to prioritize this list or to distill it down into something that's more manageable? And, I know there's some things in there that, like street trees. If the street trees are not part of a significant natural resource, should that be part of this letter? Single oak trees, although they're really, really valuable, quite often those single oak trees are not part of a significant natural resource. And so certainly saying if the oak tree is within the significant natural resource, it should be prioritized. But in reality, how many of those oak trees are actually within a significant natural resource? So I just have some concerns about everything being thrown into this letter that make it lumpy and difficult to wrap your arms around.
Well, in all our discussions, we've come up with these comments at this point, but we definitely have more. And I don't think that we have time to prioritize it before tomorrow's Planning Commission meeting. Like I said, I think we're still going to be working on this and trying to come up with some other good ideas, some other specific code numbers and page numbers, and say this should be improved, or this could this be added, or this isn't clear and objective. Now, I'd like to stop here and move over to this other letter by the Tualatin River Keepers to show us an example of the specificity on some of the codes. They do okay a little bit specifically on some codes, I believe, if I remember properly. Where to go?
Could we let Joanne ask her question while you're looking for that?
Sure,
Yeah.
sure, that's a good idea.
Thank you. Now, my comment was a couple of things is, I think it's in the county LUT's interest to get this right because they certainly don't want another appeal of a development. They've had a number, they've had to go back and do the 869A, and now they've got a remand, so no development can happen while they're doing these new ordinances. So I really think they're motivated. I also think that the planning commission can either approve, give the thumbs up on this ordinance to the commissioners. They can ask for more time or suggest and recommend more time. Or they can just say, hey, we don't feel, based on the testimony and what we're reading, we don't feel like this is adequate. So I do think it will make a difference. And I do believe that they want to get it right this time because yeah, they don't want to have to go through more appeals. It really is costly for their attorneys, and it's delaying development, which means money to them. And I think they're motivated. I think what Jim said in one part of the letter that I think is unfortunate is there's really no enforcement or no of all of these mitigation efforts, and they're lacking resources to be able to monitor the mitigation. They have things in here that just it can't happen because they don't have resources for biologists or enforcement officers to really check up and see if these developers are actually abiding by the ordinance. So that's a huge weakness of these two new ordinances, and I don't know that can be solved anytime soon, but it's certainly worth bringing up. So that's all. Thank you.
I did find the letter from the Tualatin River Keepers. It was dated July 23rd, 24. I'll read it in whole because it's their letter. Tualatin River Keepers is a community-based organization that protects and restores the Tualatin River watershed. Our 500 plus members and thousands of volunteers help us build watershed stewardship through engagement, advocacy, restoration, access, and education. TRK's advocacy in water quality and the overall health of the Tualatin River watershed leads us to closely monitor regulations that involve significant natural resources. While we are encouraged by the efforts of Washington County Land Use and Transportation, Land Use and Developments to allow for community involvement in developing Washington County land use plan in relation to SNRs, TRK is concerned that the proposed ordinance 901 and 902 do not adequately protect SNRs. We strongly encourage additional protections of SNRs in Washington County. TRK's primary concerns with the ordinance: A, insufficient protection of all riparian wildlife habitats in section 422.8. Section 422.8 provides an extensive list of exceptions to the general prohibition of new or expanded alteration of terrain and vegetation allowed in riparian habitat. The broad applicability of those exceptions ultimately renders section 422-8.2 ineffective in prohibiting development in crucial riparian habitat areas. B, inadequate riparian buffers as established in 822-8.1. Under methodology for determining wildlife habitat boundaries, the minimum riparian buffer width listed is 50 feet for all water areas except the Tualatin River, which has a minimum riparian buffer width of 125 feet. Methodology 2 permits the riparian buffer to extend to a maximum of 200 feet. This buffer width range does not provide adequate protection of riparian habitats. For example, the Columbia Gorge Commission's land use ordinance recommends a minimum 200 feet buffer for wetlands and banks of fish-bearing waterways. Further, buffers intended to provide wildlife habitat should be a minimum of 100 feet. C, broad exemptions to the tree removal within upland wildlife habitat in section 422-4.3. This section allows for harmful development of tree removal and riparian habitat that should not be allowed in SNRs. The list of activities in which associated tree removal is permitted include A, construction, maintenance, and repair of park improvements or projects. B, construction, maintenance, and repair of public transportation facilities, including but not limited to streets, street crossings, roads. C, installation, maintenance, or construction of the following utilities: sanitary and storm sewer and water lines, electric communication and signal lines, and gas distribution lines. And D, mineral extraction operations within approved mineral and aggregate sites. Allowing these developments on upland wildlife habitat does not adequately align with Goal 5's mission of protecting SNRs from new construction and development. D, intentionally indefinite language regarding tree removal in section 422-22.3. The intentionally nebulous language of this section fails to provide adequate protection of important riparian areas from development. Examples of ambiguous language in this section include D, as many existing native trees over 6 inches in diameter as possible, and as possible is bolded, shall be preserved. So as possible is not clear and objective. Rocks and tree trunks are encouraged to be placed in water areas. Are encouraged is not very clear or objective. Suggestions to enhance protection of SNRs in Washington County. Promote stronger protections of streams, wetlands, and riparian habitats. Increase the minimum buffer width to at least 100 feet for the purpose of wildlife development and 200 feet for wetlands and banks of fish rearing waterways. 2, tree planting. While a useful tool, it is not sufficient to bring back SNRs once they have been disturbed. The ordinance and community plan should provide specific criteria for ensuring that riparian habitats, wetlands, and streams brought into the UGB are protected. B, incentivize development of land that does not impact SNRs. Reduce mitigation requirements for non-SNR land. More stringent application process for developing in SNRs. And C, create higher mitigation thresholds for SNRs in areas that have already endured significant upstream impact. Last paragraph. While TRK recognizes Washington County's efforts to identify SNRs and regulate development on properties within significant habitat, our aforementioned concerns demonstrate the current inadequacies of ordinance numbers 901 and 902 with respect to protecting SNRs from harmful development. This is our opportunity to leave a legacy of resource protection in our county, and we ask that you provide stronger protections in riparian areas and generally de-incentivize development on land with SNRs. Thank you for your time and consideration. Please do not hesitate to contact us if you have questions regarding these comments. Signed by Eve Goldman, who's Advocacy and Policy Director, and Glenn Fee, who's the Executive Director of the Tualatin River Keepers. So I wanted to read that kind of in conjunction with this other letter that we put together. They have some more specifics in there about particular code numbers, and we need to get them in our next letter. But we'd like to get this letter approved so we can move forward. The other thing we have on the agenda that we could do, and Bruce, you may have the slides from the interactive mapping tool. It's nothing that actually has to do with the ordinances 901 or 902, but it's a helpful thing that they have. We don't need to talk about that first. I'd rather focus on this letter and approval of the letter first.
Okay, Gretchen, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I've been waiting about 10 minutes. I've been a planning commissioner off and on over the last 25 years. The stuff you want to do is terrific. Absolutely terrific. But you have a whole bunch of things that need to be in a tree code. Tree types of trees, absolutely. Actually, King City's starting to work on a tree code right now. Having that information in the letter dilutes the importance of specifically your having X feet from any waterways or wetlands, providing your ability to have your areas for the wildlife to be able to move. I have trouble doing the lingo, but please, please, please take those things out, because you're going to get the planning commissioners confused, because they'll be thinking tree codes. That's not what's in here. Please, please, please. If you can clear some of that out, you'll have a much better approach. And quite frankly, on appeal, because you know it's going to end up getting appealed, it'll make it cleaner for Luba.
Are you talking about our subcommittee, the SNR subcommittee's letter, or the
I'm
River?
talking about the letter that we're talking about tonight, and how you can testify more successfully at the Planning Commission is to delete those particular items.
Okay, you used the word dilutes.
Dilute, yes, because you're mixing apples and oranges. Things that go in a tree code aren't issues in SNR. And it's going to confuse people and effectively dilutes your influence. I want you to succeed. I want this to go forward. I want what you want. That's why I'm raising the issue, to make it cleaner and make it better for you to be able to move forward. I'm just speaking as someone, if we're coming in front of me, I'm going, why are they talking about tree codes? This doesn't make sense. And I know a lot of people will disagree with me. I understand. I'm trying to make it stronger for you.
I think that's a really good point. I did find the letter to be fairly wide-ranging. Mary Lou, what do you have?
Well, we're responding to the particular items on trees in 901 and 902. They're in 901 and 902. There's a whole section on trees. So I don't know how we could possibly leave that out, because that's a significant part of it.
Gretchen?
Jeez.
Okay. Mary Lou, Joanne, what do you
Oh,
got?
I was just agreeing with Mary Lou that everything in the letter is in response to the ordinances. So we're responding to the detail in the ordinances. So there's nothing in this letter responding to them that is not included in what they're in the ordinance. So anyway, thank you.
Jim?
As often happens at our
We have
CCI
two
meeting.
people in the attendees who have their hand raised. Can we take them first?
Sure.
Okay, Janet, is your hand up? Go ahead, Janet, you're live. Your volume is turned way down.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
How about
ma'am.
now?
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
sorry. I was just raised my hand earlier when you said who had read the letter. I was raising my hand to tell you I'd read the letter, so I didn't know how
Okay.
to unraise my hand, so you can ignore me.
Okay, thanks. And Carl Swanson.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. I was not able to find the letter, so you can correct me if something's been covered in it. I listened to the summary. I'm aware of the TRK letter. My concern is that nobody seems to be picking up on what it looks like is broad deference to roads. So, I mean, a developer can't develop in certain SNRs, but they can put new roads through.
Isn't it? Go pee.
So what's the, they can take it, that to their advantage by, locating the roads within the SNRs to increase their density or to increase their buildable land. And there's nothing in there that I can find that says new roads should evaluate alternatives. I mean, if they have an alternative that avoids an SNR, there's nothing in there that says they should be encouraged to use that alternative. So it just says roads, and it broadly lets them do any road, a new road, maintenance to a road. It's like roads get carte blanche. So is that something that's already been addressed or maybe needs to be added?
We are looking at that, and like I said, we're going to be meeting every week, and coming back next month. Hopefully, this will be on the agenda next month, and we can have more specifics about that. It's really time to get down to those specifics and see if the county comes through with things that are clear and objective related to that. I remember seeing one of our remands back 5, 6, 7 years ago that did talk about roads, and I guess I need to go find that and get some specifics there. But we are starting to look at the fact that the county or the state just can't just put roads wherever they want without protecting the significant natural resource areas. So, as I was going to say, our usual mode of operation on this is to approve the letter after further review from the steering committee, which is meeting tomorrow morning at 11, and then we could take it forward. Now, we would want to take it forward tomorrow night at the planning commission meeting. And the way it's set up, it had the signatures of everybody on the subcommittee who wanted their name on there, but we would also put it on CCI letterhead, and Bruce as chair could also sign it. So that's what I suggest as a moving forward, a mode of operation.
Okay, I think it would be good if you could just put in a placeholder to be expanded later, so at least that topic is included to at least keep people thinking that that's a topic to cover in more detail later, and develop the detail. But at least for now, just a simple statement that it seems to be missing, that there needs to be more to discourage running new roads through SNRs.
I understand completely. We just haven't got there yet. It's a 7-page letter, and we could make it many longer. I've got my own letter, which includes things like that, but I'll bring that to the subcommittee and try and get that built in. So it's not out of line for us, for the CCI, to have 2 letters, one this month and then one next month, before the commissioners and the planning commissioners and board of commissioners.
Okay, thanks.
I have a question, maybe a suggestion. Would it be practical, you knowing the letter so well, would it be practical to have one letter addressing ordinance 901 and a separate letter addressing 902?
We might be able to bring that back next month. Probably we could bring that back next month, but right now, geez,
Okay. I get your point. And I mean, the planning commission has seen this letter as a slightly earlier draft. I want to I need to inform the group that I have property mapped as upland habitat that pretty much all fell over in the January ice storm. I have 300-year-old oak trees that got Inonotus driatus, which is sort of commonly known as butt rot, which just fell over. And I'm just stunned at the devastation in my backyard. And so Michelle Miller informed me that a employee of the consultant is going to Ethan Rosenthal of David Evans and Associates is going to be doing site visits to identify to review people who have issues. And so as a result of that, I think I will abstain from the letter, but I would be happy to sign it as coming from the CCI. So are we putting this in the capable hands of the steering committee tomorrow to finalize it? Mary Lou, what do you got?
I don't understand your abstention.
Thank you. I have a conflict of interest that
You
I want
do?
to acknowledge, and I'm not going to argue with you right now.
No, I heard what you explained about your
The
trees.
mapping itself, as I've looked through it, is better than it was in 1980 when it wasn't exactly done with crayons. It was done with um, stereoscopic pictures and viewers. And as I've looked through the neighborhoods and examined what is still intact, the mapping is kind of shaky and does not provide a ironclad definition of what is what. It indicates areas that need to be looked at, but when you get down to doing a development, you're very concerned with feet. And this broad sweep is problematic. And I know that in the absence of having a process to review current conditions, that there's going to be people who are vehemently opposed to the county's actions. So my position is I want to see more on-site review of property, both if you feel that it's not upland habitat or if you feel it is, either way. And I haven't seen that as I've looked through the development code. So since I have a personal interest in this, I was going to abstain from voting on the letter. Now, the letter will do its job because it will get to them. But if the county doesn't have a chance to respond to the letter, then I think we're all kind of scratching our heads. So my hands down.
Okay.
So Jim, anybody else, Carl, is your hand still up to talk, or are you just still needing to take it down? Okay, very good. So shall we rely on the steering committee to finalize it and put it on CCI letterhead tomorrow?
If I can, I'll move that this letter be referred to the steering committee tomorrow and hopefully get out to the planning commission and the board of commissioners.
Okay, so Jim has moved. Do we have a second? Mary Lou seconds the letter. Now, let's have a vote on everybody who is voting yes on the letter. Okay. Okay, now I am going to do this trick here. Okay, now please take your hands down. And anybody opposed to approving the letter, raise your hands. Okay, nobody's opposed. And so I am going to go with my position. I'm going to abstain at this time. So there we have it. Mary Manso, are you abstaining? Gretchen and Mary?
Yes, I am.
Yes.
abstaining.
Okay, Gretchen and Mary are abstaining. Okay. Okay, I think we have covered this.
Virginia's abstaining too.
You're abstaining too?
Yep.
Excuse me. Okay. I think we have pretty much covered this subject. Jim, thank you so much for your efforts and for your willingness to run us through all of that. It was a good big deal. Thank you very much. Now, let's all take a breath and kind of pick up pieces here. What are we doing now?
I need to ask a question.
Go ahead.
Bruce, I understand you abstained, and 3 of the other steering committee members abstained. So we'll be taking it there, and there'll be one, maybe another steering committee member. So it's just an interesting dynamic where you've all abstained. So I'm looking forward to seeing how we can get a letter approved tomorrow. I mean, maybe we're making some changes that Gretchen suggested, taking out a paragraph here or there. Anyway, I wanted that forth, that the steering committee will be interesting tomorrow to see, with 4 abstainers, how the letter gets out.
Well, my position is that the CCI approved it. So on the weight of that, I would put it on CCI letterhead and sign it and send it in.
Thank you.
Mary Lou?
I'm just surprised.
Okay. Moving along, I see that the Transportation Subcommittee is next. I don't think the Transportation Subcommittee has met. Ken, is there anything that that I missed that would pertain to the Transportation Subcommittee?
No, we haven't met this summer at all. So,
Yeah.
basically our CPO, we're still working on a transportation survey that we're going to do in CPO 6. And in fact, I got a meeting next week with a steering committee meeting with CPO 6 members to go over that survey. So before we actually issue it. So when we're done, we'll let you know.
Okay, very good.
You bet.
I am not up to date on why, but it looks like Luba has approved the appeal of the Tile Flat Road. And that certainly isn't the end of the subject. What do we got here? Melissa, let's get you on here and talking about what I just said. Mary, is your hand up for this?
Yes, it actually is.
Okay.
And I think my question is Luba remands back to Washington County. So as it's remanded back to Washington County, can Washington County fix what Luba
objected to?
Yeah, exactly.
Melissa, that sounds like a subject for you.
It does sound like a subject for me. So I just did this today, so I'm kind of going off the cuff here, but so our hearings officer approved the application. And when I say our hearings officer, I mean Washington County contracts with independent hearings officer to make these decisions. And the independent hearings officer, as you probably know, did approve the application. A citizen, community member, if you will, is the one who submitted the petition for review to Luba. And Luba did not support the community members' arguments in the petition for review. Therefore, the application stands.
Ah, okay. I didn't understand that correctly. So what ordinance was that? That was ordinance 862?
I'm sorry?
The Tile Flat Road ordinance was...
That doesn't have anything to do with In-N-Out Burger.
No.
No. I was guessing.
It's 882.
We're talking about Tile Flat Road, not In-N-Out
Oh,
Burger.
never mind then. I thought you were talking about In-N-Out Burger.
We
Sorry.
don't care about In-N-Out Burger. We're getting one in Hillsboro.
So I hear. Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
So, so do you have anything to add? Melissa, do you have anything to add about the tile flat road ordinance?
No, we have not, to my knowledge, we have not done, it doesn't actually remand back to, it remands back to Washington County. We have not made a decision on what we plan, how we are going to proceed at this point. We have not had, the board is still discussing as far as I
Okay.
know.
Okay. Well,
Yeah,
darn.
sorry about that. I have In-N-Out Burger on the brain today. I apologize.
That's okay. That's okay. Gretchen, what do you got?
Sorry. I read the opinion and it appeared that they were asking for the county to have more specificity, which sort of was the reason that they made it as vague as they did, because they didn't have a specific route. So that's an issue that the county's going to have to address, but that was the primary
Reason.
point in the appellate decision. So,
And I think, wasn't that the reason that Roy Rogers voted
yes,
the ordinance?
yeah,
Yes. Getting around the mountain and creating an arterial system for the tens of
yes,
thousands of people that are going to have new homes seems like it would be a good idea to create a functioning urban infrastructure to me. I drive on 205 occasionally, and I wonder what would 82nd and 92nd boulevards look like if 205 wasn't there? And it's unthinkable what would it would be like. And so I'm just wondering what we're going to do in Southwest County. If anybody has a rejoinder to that, I would love to hear it. Otherwise, we'll move ahead to the communications subcommittee, which did not meet this month. Virginia, have you been hearing from the county about the receipt of website changes that we suggested?
They did respond to the what I call the low-hanging fruit, the errors and omissions that were basic, but I haven't heard anything further. And ICA certainly has her hands full at the moment, being the sole provider of administrative services to all of the CPOs. So we probably need to follow up on that, but I'm not looking at anything immediate.
Okay, well, good. I'm glad that it's in the works. Gretchen, you got something on that?
sorry about that.
Okay, very good. So in the Jim, what do you got?
I have an item to take to the communications committee. When do you meet next? Okay. My issue, I don't know how many of you, but in the past maybe 3 or 4 weeks, I got and here it is here. I got a phone book. And the phone book has a lot of things, but it does not have any government offices or things to participate in that way. So I can document, there's been some federal research to say how important it is to improve access, improve telephone directories. And I'll try and bring a letter to the communications committee and or the steering committee about that.
Very good. As I recall, that was one of your original civic acts, was to have a services directory. Am I right?
Mr. Blue Pages.
Right. Or some people call me Mr. Green Pages. It started as green. So I think if they're going to print phone books, we might as well try and encourage them to make it worthwhile for people looking for government numbers also.
Seems like a darn good idea. Okay, thank you very much. that kind of leads us to the ongoing sort of evolution of the understanding of what the role of CPO leaders can be, given the increased scrutiny of public meeting laws. ICA sent out a letter that contains some explanation of the board's letter to the CPO leaders. It still has some kind of open issues in my mind that need to be addressed. And ICA has agreed to work collaboratively with the CCI to create a document that responds to some of our concerns or questions. And so the thing you received is a draft. I wouldn't say that anything is wrong in it. I would say that there are areas that need more information so that it becomes a real operational document for CPO leaders. And I am happy to work with ICA on that. So Mary, what do you got?
A couple of things. One is, I don't know if everybody has noticed, but Danny Ledesma has been named as the interim OEICE head. And the second thing is OEICE is on the agenda, the board's agenda for Tuesday with their quarterly update. And one of the things I noticed was they talk about goals for the 2024 to 25 goals. And one of those goals is to modernize the CCI and CPO program, which is no surprise, but deliverables include a revised R&O for CCI and CPO modernization. And then as you scroll through the slides, they talk about internal next steps for 2024-25. And it talks about stakeholder engagement. And I found it really interesting that CCI and CPO leaders are not listed as stakeholders that they will engage. Just thought it was interesting.
Okay. Amanda contacted me and said that she would like to attend the steering committee meeting tomorrow to discuss some of these issues.
Perfect.
So, so I'm taking this all to be a good faith effort. Fawn, what do you got?
I just want to applaud that suggestion. We've had months and months of strange sort of stoppages of our work and roadblocks and unclear explanations. I mean, demands without saying why, you know, unclear responses to our questions. If they're not going to work with us, then, I mean, if they're not going to really be clear and objective, or even just clear, it's going to be a lot of problems. And if we don't agree, I mean, if we feel like we're being treated like children, that's not going to work either.
I couldn't agree more.
Thank you.
I think that this has been identified up and down the hierarchy at the county, and I am confident that we will be stakeholders. We will be involved in the modernization work, but it certainly has not been a settling experience going through the last few years.
Right.
It's like, okay. So
Exactly.
Gretchen, what do you got?
Thank you. Yep.
Okay, thank you. Gretchen, you got your hand up.
Oh. Sorry.
That's okay. Oh,
Is there any way we could start the meeting at 10:45 so we could work on the letter so we have time to hear from Amanda.
Works for
The reason
me.
I unfortunately have to leave at 11:30 for another committee meeting that I'm chairing, so I sort of
Well,
have to be there.
I think that we would certainly be well, I think it would be good protocol to let Amanda go first, and then we can work the letter. No, that's not what you were saying. You wanted to work on the letter,
I
right?
was asking if we could start a little earlier tomorrow morning and then have Amanda at 11
Sure. Jim?
because I have a dead stop because I have another meeting at 11:30.
Are
you,
you
Jim, are
assume,
you,
Gretchen, that you want to participate in the letter as well? And that's
I'd like to participate in the letter if possible. I mean, I want to see it go forward.
okay, I will have the meeting going at 10:45 tomorrow.
Thank you.
Okay. And I'm looking forward to what Amanda has to say. Mary, what day is the OAICE quarterly update hitting the commissioners meeting?
It's on Tuesday. It is part of the agenda that was just posted today. And I
Okay, so
believe
it's
that's
on
an evening meeting, but I can't.
So that's August 27th, isn't it?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's usually the fourth meeting of the month. That's the evening meeting.
Yes, it's the evening meeting.
Thank you, Ika.
Okay. Let me see here. I guess it is time for the I don't so let's do a CPO roundtable. CPO 1, let's go in numerical order. CPO 1
We didn't meet in August.
didn't meet in August. We maintained our track record of not holding a meeting in August, encouraging people to go on vacation and giving Virginia and me a break. My neighborhood did have neighbor night out, and we had 7 different Washington County law enforcement officers, including a couple of lieutenants and the chief deputy. And we fed them well. We fed them, we took care of them. We're sort of looking to see what we can put on the agenda. I'm kind of interested in having the Sheriff's Department talk about the mental health ride-along. So we're investigating getting a speaker for the sheriff's mental health team. So we go. Melissa, you just popped up.
I did. It's one of the DIAMI presentation months.
Oh.
Well, we are going to have in September, I have agreed to let Eva from community development talk about the housing work they're doing.
That's totally fine, Bruce. The reason we started these every other month things was because you had asked us to establish a transportation 101 curriculum that could span several meetings with CCI.
Indeed.
If you're no longer interested in doing that, that's fine, but we
No,
can't keep
Eva,
juggling schedules. So if you don't want us in September, we've got everything planned.
Are we talking about two different things? I think Bruce is talking about CPO 1.
No. The CCI next month is I've agreed to have, so Eva is doing.
Oh, okay.
The consolidated plan for housing is going through its 5-year review process right now.
And it's totally fine, Bruce. I mean, we were just responding to the requests that you had made.
Yes,
so
and
we're happy to back off, no problem.
And we remain passionately interested in hearing from land use and transportation, given other kind of time-sensitive things. We might kind of rearrange your schedule just a little bit. So,
yeah, and I'm not. What I'm trying to tell you is I don't know that we can accommodate that. But we'll do what we can.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Not a worry.
Is there at this point, do you feel that you could say we'll have the next transportation presentation in October?
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. We've got Diami booked for September, November, January, and so on, and March.
Okay.
We had him scheduled for CCI meetings for the year, as we had discussed, which is, I mean, so I guess what I'm saying is I just don't know what his availability is, having done that already. So I can't promise, but we'll see what we can come up with.
Since we gummed up the works, we might just stay with the schedule that you have.
Well, I don't want to interrupt. I mean, if you want to adjust your schedule, that's totally fine. I'm just saying I don't know. I can't commit off the top of my head that we'll be able to do that.
How long is your presentation? Would it be feasible to do both?
It might.
We're
we're talking about an hour-long presentation with questions and answers? That's kind of our format, isn't it, Melissa?
Well, I don't know that it has to be that long. It's not. I mean, we can. I mean, I'm sure we can try and adjust. I'm just saying I can't promise.
You have staff people with their time constraints.
Well, that's part
true.
of it. Yes.
And we also have the significant natural resource issue that will come back to the CCI in September.
Well, if you're doing housing and you're doing significant natural resources, then
that seems like a full meeting.
Yeah, there's no way you could do a transportation presentation as well.
Yeah.
And we'll see what we can do. And I guess the question is too, do you want us to, if we do October, then do you want us to do October, November, or do you want us to do?
Okay, so I think the steering committee, I think the steering committee is the place to resolve this scheduling issue.
Okay.
Boy, take my eyes off the road for just a second and ditch comes crashing in on me. Okay, so anyway, Mary, you're holding your head because it hurts, or okay. Gretchen, is your hand still up? Probably not. Okay.
Sorry.
CPO 3, anything to share with this jolly group?
Not too much. Mainly had a service district set of updates for our August meeting. Otherwise, sort of in a holding pattern for some of the other pressing issues for our CPO. Not too many updates on them. Hey, if anybody hears anything about that crazy plan for Red Tail, pass it along to us, because we're not hearing any news on it. So that's about it.
Crazy plan.
Yep.
Okay, CPO 4B, 4M, 4K, Gretchen?
4K. 4K. Hi.
4K, yeah.
We met in July, had elections and a interesting local development was the focus of, that's actually going to be on the Tigard side of the road, was the focus of the meeting. We don't meet in August, but we are back going full time. That's it for me.
Okay. Is CPO 4K taking minutes and turning them in?
I have told them that that's what they need to do.
Okay. Janet, you got your hand up. Oh, and Sophia, you had your hand up too. I'm sorry, I didn't. So Janet.
So I just wanted, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, a quick update is we just had the executive committee chose the positions just a couple weeks ago, and I am the new secretary, so I will be doing minutes. We've had a bit of changes going on. Yes, so I just wanted to let you know that yes, there will be minutes.
Okay, well, they don't need to be very exact. They don't need to be very detailed.
I'll
the
be
more
new.
the
I'll be
merrier.
new at it, but I will be doing something.
All right, thank you. Thank you, thank you. What do we got? We got Sophia.
That's
okay, you're on.
Unmute.
Bet I'm now on, right?
Yep, you are.
Okay. I want to thank the work that's being done on the natural resources. I still have my half acre. I've been here for 45 years. And about the arterials, I've offered to include part of my land for that. But Lute decides that maybe I should develop it myself to include a safety sidewalk. The arterial is there and they don't feel like they've impacted my land, my house. And it's an old farmhouse on Kemmer, and it's the old part, which was Route 1560, changed to Weir, and then finally when Kemmer Estates came in, it became Kemmer Road. The impact is severe as an arterial, but not recognized impact-wise. And seeing that Cooper Mountain is divided to north and south, I thought for sure with the inclusion of 901 and 902, we'd have some specifics that would be good for the developers to adhere to. Without the resources, I'm also disappointed that maybe there's not going to be anything that would be upheld in their ability to think through a fair process to protect the riparian zone and all the zones that are included with water. So yeah, vineyards is all roads, as far as I remember. It used to be a vineyard, and they're touting it as wonderful, but without seeing anything, retention ponds or places for people to enjoy the nature, it's all a loss on Cooper Mountain. And I'm sorry that I feel that way, but after 45 years, I'm really not seeing anything other than citizens that are protecting anything. So that's my opinion, and definitely I don't know if I'm going to be able to stay here much longer if they don't. When you say arterial roads, it'd be nice if they actually include some safety in those. It's still a 2-lane, yeah, still a 2-lane road, and I'm not counting on Washington County to improve. And it's unfortunate they don't find the resources through the developers. Therefore, we have to hook onto sewer at our cost. And it's a mandatory thing. And yes, that would save water quality, but it's putting on the homeowner and not the developer who's actually just ravaging Cooper Mountain. So that's my input.
Would you be willing to write a little statement of what you're facing and send it to WACOCCI
I would, if I could copy that again, if you would go
Sure.
get on the email.
It's WACO, Washington County, WACO CCI leaders at gmail.com.
I would love to. It was disappointing to hear that Beaverton's going to be taking over Cooper Mountain Park. I guess I'm
Carlton
just
Hills Park and Rec District would be taking over the park.
yes, and it's going to be put into Beaverton's care as they continue on spreading, from what I read on the 901 and the 902. So yes, I'm more than willing to write that down. And I'm not a fan on relying on the new municipalities to take care of our land. So yeah, thanks for inviting me for the email.
Sure. Okay, moving on to CPO 4M. I don't know how much more busy you guys could be, but
We're having a meeting this month, and we have on our agenda a letter about the significant natural resources ordinance.
imagine.
We want to get on record, and so we have it, planned ahead. It's on our agenda, and I'm not sure exactly what we'll do, but we'll make our comments about the proposed ordinances 901 and 902.
Okay, CPO 4M, okay, CPO 6.
Yeah, as you know, we're on hiatus this summer, so not a lot to talk about other than, like I mentioned earlier, the transportation studies that we're doing. We'll probably have a report for you guys next meeting on that. And Sophia, if you're still there, we're CPO 6 is in your turf. So if Bruce could forward, well, actually, I'll get copied on it on that email that you send to Bruce and the
Okay.
CCI group. I'll get copied on that, so that'll be good. I was going to give you our email address, but I don't want to confuse the issue. So
Just for all the listeners out there, if you want to get a hold of any specific CPO, we have symmetrical email addresses. It goes CPO number leaders.com. So CPO1 leaders.com, CPO3 leaders.com, CPO4K
At
leaders,
gmail.com.
gmail.com.
Yeah.
What did I say? I said something. So CPO6 leaders at gmail.com. We'll get it to Ken.
Yep. Okie doke. That's it. Thanks.
And if it were legal, we'd put it in the chat, but the chat seems to somehow be illegal to use in these meetings. I apologize to everybody. Okay, CPO 6, CPO 7.
That would be me. We took August off. We are having a presentation in September from the Beaverton Resource Center. And apparently they provide all sorts of services for people who need stuff in the Beaverton area. And then in October, we are having speakers, both pro and con, on Measure 118. Very interesting ballot measure. And it's one that on its surface looks really good, but it's got some real serious problems for state finances.
I couldn't agree more. Without stepping into Melissa, do you have your hand up to say something?
No,
Okay.
I don't. I just haven't lowered my hand.
Okay, so yes, and I think ballot measure 118, am I saying that right?
Yes.
Yeah, is an example of why the CPOs are a valuable function in that we try to get both sides of an issue. And from what I've seen, ballot measure 118 has a lot of ramifications that aren't immediately apparent from the promotional material of it. So it's good to have both sides. Is Jody Weiser going to be the opposing presenter?
Yes, yes. And David, and I can't remember what his
I saw his name.
But I did forward information to you about Carlson, David Carlson, I believe is his name. So if anybody would like information on who to contact for pro or con, shoot me an email. CPO7leaders@gmail.com, and I can provide you with contact information.
Yes, David Carlson is the person. Okay, CPO 8. Anybody from CPO 8?
Me?
Hey, Fawn.
Hi. So we met in July, had a very good presentation from Nicole Ruggiero from Soil and Water Conservation District. Her subject was how to protect farmland with using the tool of conservation easement. That is her position at the Soil and Water Conservation Service, where they do receive and manage easements. It's quite a process that requires evaluating the developable and not developable values of the land, comparing them, and then figuring out, all the tax ramifications and all that kind of stuff. So it's a long thing. And then also writing the contract for what restrictions will be on the property in the easement. She had some excellent PowerPoint slides and I would definitely recommend it for any of the other rural CPOs or any urban and incorporated CPOs that have some rural lands. It doesn't work for acreages that are very small. Nicole was saying 60 acres, but since then we've discovered there is a tool, an online tool available now for helping to compare other similar properties to sort of shorten that evaluation process, and that helps make it less expensive. So therefore, smaller properties might be feasible. So at this point, I don't know how many acres that means. It might be 20 or 10 or something like that. As particularly if you have adjoining of neighbors' properties that would be interested as well. It's an exciting tool, and it's been difficult to get it going. Whereas down in Corvallis, my understanding is that for decades, the whole city has been ringed with conservation easements, which helps your view shed to the distance.
It sure does. I attended CPO8 to hear the Tualatin Soil and Water Conservation District presentation, and again was quite impressed at the level of serious work that Soil and Water does. And they are fortunate that their tax base was approved, and now
yes,
they're
I worked on
funded
that.
to do this work.
Yeah.
Next step would be to get extension, having a tax base. Okay.
Yeah, that would be, wouldn't that be great? Yeah, our district was quite hampered for many years by not having the tax base, but I was one of the campaigners helping with that passage. I'm proud to say that it passed. And
Soil and Water?
Yeah, the tax base.
Okay, and any other rural CPOs contacting the Tualatin Soil and Water Conservation District would be a good source of interesting topics for your
yeah, I mean, besides the conservation easement, they could also just talk about soils. They have one of the region's expert soil scientists on their board, and he's very happy to come out and talk.
Can you recall the name?
Dean Moberg.
Oh, Dean, yeah, sure.
Yeah, Dean. He's in your CPO.
Yeah.
Right, but he's very happy to talk to other CPOs as well if they'd be interested in that, and because it relates to all the terminology that for most of us are foreign language. Class 1 and 2 and 3 soils, prime farmland. They have definitions, and different chemistries and different qualities and climates, all that kind of stuff, and we don't understand it until we study it. But he's done that, so he's a great teacher.
Thank you. So
you're very welcome.
CPO 10 would be next. Anybody from CPO 10? I don't think so. CPO 11, 12, 13, or 14, the new ones that activated. Bringing us to CPO 15. Paul?
I haven't received an updated schedule yet, but I suppose I can pose the question at the next community gathering for Labor Day.
Okay. Well, that brings us dangerously close to the end of this meeting. Does anybody have anything to share? Yeah, Gretchen.
Don't forget to send a link for the meeting in the morning.
Oh, okay. Jim.
I'm enjoying listening to the crickets.
And Mary.
Can I move to adjourn?
I second the motion.
You have an 11 minutes of free time, ladies and gentlemen. Go enjoy it.
Ooh. Good
Thank
meeting, Bruce. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Good night.
Good night, all.
Good night.
Listen to the crickets.